Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for taking your time and joining this training session. I believe the entire training course will definitely help you on your real-time IT management. Once again, welcome to Desktop Central Training. Before I proceed with the training, I would like to know if you are able to hear my voice and view the presentation. Please do comment on the chat window below. Thank you very much for confirming. Let me introduce myself. My name is Santosh, and I'm one of the product specialists with ManageEngine, and I take care of endpoint solution. Let's look at the training schedule. We are on the week 2 of the training schedule, and we will be looking at the software deployment. In case you have missed the previous training, you can always view them on the link at the bottom of the screen. This is week 2, and we will be looking at software deployment. Let's quickly look at the agenda for today. We will be looking at the overview of software deployment, and we will be deploying a freeware application like Google Chrome to all our computers, and we'll be see how we can deploy a commercial application like Office 2016 to a specific department. And we'll also be looking at how we can make the end user to install the softwares by themselves. We'll also look at some scenarios and solutions from the support. And we'll also look at some quick, frequently asked questions. And during this training, in case you have any questions, please feel free to comment on the chat window. We have an expert panel who are always available to answer your query real time. Desktop Central software deployment supports all 3 operating systems, Windows, Mac, and Linux. And we have over 2,500 predefined application templates that are available on the server for all 3 flavors of operating system that you can use to download the application and install them. Let's quickly look at the Desktop Central architecture. Now, Desktop Central is a client-server model, which means the agent application is to be installed on all the machines that we are going to manage. And this is an on-premise solution. Now, you can install your server on the LAN or even on a DMZ. I presume that everyone knows what is a DMZ. When you install the server on a DMZ, you can have the agent contact the server securely. Now, Desktop Central can manage both local area network agents as well as wide area network agent. Now, when you have a local area network agent, they take the patch or the software from the central server directly. However, in case of a wide area network agent, you can group them into remote offices, and you can have a distribution server for each remote office for them to take the patches and softwares. Now, what is a distribution server? Imagine you have over 100 machines in one of your remote office. And if you have a distribution server installed in one of the machines on your branch office, whenever you deploy a patch or a software to that branch office, the software gets replicated to the distribution server, and from the distribution server, it gets distributed to all the agents in that branch office. Now, can I manage roaming users, meaning the users who will be on the internet and as well as connect through the LAN when they are in the office? Yes, you can create a separate remote office just for the roaming user, and you can manage them when they connect over the internet as well as when they're on the LAN. Since I mentioned this as a client-server model, we know that we can install the server on one of the server in the LAN or on DMZ. For the agent installation, we do have 3 methods. Now, the Desktop Central supports both domain as well as workgroup setup. In case you have added the domain or workgroup to the server console, you can select the agent from the domain and you can initiate agent installation automatically from the console. Now, for this, we have a prerequisite. you must check if you're able to reach the admin folder, share folder of the client machine from the server installed machine to enable successful installation, because we keep the installation package on the admin share folder of the client machine, and then we initiate the agent installation. So before you try a remote installation, please do check if you're able to reach the admin folder. And of course, you can always download the package manually, or even you can use a script to deploy them. And if you have a domain, you can create a group policy, and you will be able to install the agent using a GPO script. And what if I don't want to expose my central server? Now, in that case, you can use a forwarding server in between your central server and the roaming users so that the connection will be secure. What is a forwarding server? A forwarding server is a secure gateway server which is placed in between the roaming users or the roaming branch office and the central server. Any communication between the roaming user and the central server will be routed through this forwarding server. And what if most of my agents are on cloud or on roaming users? Then you can probably have the desktop central server on one of the Azure or AWS instance so that you can manage cloud agents as well as LAN agents. Now, when you use this infrastructure, this is a cost-effective solution as you don't have to invest on the hardware. And especially if you are a managed service provider, MSP, you can manage multiple profiles or customers using this AWS or Azure cloud. Now, you can expect Zoho to migrate to cloud soon. Please be looking for the newsletters as well. Now, let's look at what are the components that we require for the proper functioning of the server. We know we will have to install the central server, which is an essential part, and we will have to install the agent in all the machines in order to manage them. And of course, we need to have a notification server. Now, this is installed along with the server bundle. We'll talk about this notification server when we deploy the software and where it is used for. Distribution server is optional. In case you want to manage remote office using distribution server, you can use that. Or in case if you want to use forwarding server, which is also optional, we do have failover server as well. Now, what is a failover server? The failover server monitors the primary server. In case if there are any failure on the main server, the failover server takes over and ensures there is no downtime. And of course, we do have language pack in case if you want to opt for it. On the architecture, let's look at the ports used by the desktop central. Now, desktop central server and the agent communication is a pull method. So on the server side, desktop central server uses 8020 for HTTP communication and 8383 for HTTP secure communication. In case you have a distribution server in between, the server uses 8021 for HTTP and 8384 for HTTP secure communication. And for various other functionalities like remote control, we use 8444 and 8443 as ports, and for file transfer, we use 8032 and 8031. We also have voice and video chat with the agent machines. So it uses a UDP protocol 8443. So you can use those ports to communicate them. In fact, if you want to know more about the other functionalities with respect to voice, video chat, or other tools that we have, you can always register for the upcoming trainings where we will be talking more about the tools, so that will be helpful for you. And we do have one specific port that I was talking about, the notification server, which uses 8027, and it uses a TCP protocol. Now, this is a live protocol between the agent and server. This is used for our immediate deployments. I'll talk about this, like I mentioned, when I do the software deployment. And there are other ports used by Desktop Central as well. In case if you want to know what are the ports, you can always view them on the link at the bottom of the screen. It will have complete details of the ports used by Desktop Central and the architecture. Now, agent and the server communicates in a 90-minute refresh policy. What is this 90-minute refresh policy? Every agent talks to the server once in 90 minutes. For example, if you have 90 agents, every minute an agent talks to the server. Even if you have 900 or even 9,000 machines, this 90 minutes will be divided by the number of agents, and each agent will be given a specific time to contact the server. The server has the intelligence to give a specific time for the agent to contact them. Because of this 90 minutes refresh policy, you will not have network congestion, or the performance of the server will not be affected at all. Considering a big environment such as 9,000 or 10,000 machines, this 90 minutes refresh policy can really be very helpful. Now, why do the enterprise need a software deployment solution? Now, you as an IT expert have two choices while you deploy the software. You can install and configure each software manually on all the machines, which is a time-consuming and a tedious process, which you would require a centralized software solution for that. And second option you have is you can give the option of installation to the user, but when you have the users install the software by themselves, then you will receive too many service requests. In order to avoid such software-related help desk requests, you need a centralized software deployment solution. Now let's look at how the software deployment works with the Desktop Central. Now we download the application binaries from the vendor website and we keep it on a repository. And then we create a package. We give the location of the repository. We apply the appropriate silent switches, and then we create a package. Once we create the package, we then proceed to create a configuration. Once I create the configuration, I choose the package that I have created, and then I deploy it to all my agents. Now, in case of a local office or a local area network agent, the agent accesses the repository directly and takes the application and installs it. However, in case of a remote office, the distribution server takes the application binaries from the repository and then distributes them locally to all the agents. Now we spoke about the repository. We have two types of repository here. One is a network share. The other one is a HTTP type of repository. When I use a network share, the agent connects to the network share with appropriate access, and it installs the application from the network share. However, in a HTTP type of repository, the agent downloads the agent binary, the software binaries completely to the agent install folder, and then proceeds with installation. Now, when you're using a network share, you would require appropriate access. So this will be suitable for local area network agents. However, considering a remote office or a wide area network agent, you can go for a HTTP type of repository. Now, when you use a HTTP repository, if you had enabled HTTP secure communication between the server and the agent, then the download will also be on HTTPS. Now, when you're using a network share, there is no limit for the file size, meaning there is no practical limit for a specific application binary. You can even install a bigger file structure. When you're using a HTTP repository, you can upload up to 5 GB per package. Now, in our support experience, we have not come across a package which exceeds a 5 GB. So it should be enough for the end user to download and install. And coming to the setting up and maintenance of the network share, now you have to provide appropriate access, and you will have to give the credentials to access the share, because even on the recent virus attacks that we have seen that all these ransomware spread through the network share. So it is always good to have a credentials associated for the network share. Hence, the maintenance is very crucial. In case of a HTTP type of repository, you would not require such maintenance. And for the network share, we also support Windows DFS as well. Now let's look at the software deployment task. Now consider here a scenario. Peter being the IT manager, and he has John and his team. So he has given several tasks for John and his team to complete over 100 computers. John and his team is managing over 1,000 machines with different remote offices and different groups of departments. I consider here myself as John, and let me see what are the tasks that is given to me and how I can accomplish that using the Desktop Central. The first task given to me is to deploy Chrome browser to all my network computers. Let's go to the product. Now on the Desktop Central server, I go to software deployment. Since this is a freeware application, I am going to try and search on the templates that we already have. Since we have over 2,500 templates, I'm going to search if the Chrome is available here or not. Once I search for the template, I see a list of packages that are available. Packages for Windows, packages for Mac, packages for Linux as well. When I click on a specific package, now I can see the details what we have on the package, the name of the application, the version, and the type of installation it is, and the location from where it will download the application binary. Of course, the installation switches, which is very important. Since this is an MSI, we would not require installation switches because this will be handled by Microsoft internally when your installation. However, if it's an exe package, the same Chrome can be downloaded from the vendor website as an exe. In that case, you would definitely require a silent switches. Now, when I'm using the template here, I see that the switches will already be applied. If it's applicable, we will have the switches configured. Now, once I check the template and click on Create Package, the application will be downloaded from the vendor website, and it will be kept on our repository, and the package will also be created with the appropriate switches. Now, that's how easy when you are using a predefined template. In case if you want to add a specific software to this template list, you can click on the link that I show you on the right-hand side, get your application added. So you can send a request to us. Our team will check the feasibility and have the software added to the template list. Now, once I create the package, I go to Packages here on my left-hand side, and I search for the package that I have created. In our case, John is searching for Chrome. Now I can see the packages that I have created. Now, once I created it, I select the package that I want to install and go for the installation. Now I'm going to create a configuration. I can create a user configuration, or I can create a computer configuration as well. If I want to deploy this for a specific user or a group of users, I can choose a user configuration. In case if I want to deploy to specific machines, I can choose computer configuration here. Since John is going to deploy to all the machines, we are going to use the computer configuration here. Now, in the configuration page, I can specify the name that I want to have for the configuration. And then I can select the package that I have created. In our case, we have selected the Google Chrome, which is an MSI. In case if you have created an exe package, you can select it from the exe list. So once I select the package from the list, I can choose to either install it completely, or I can remove the application as well. In case if you want to uninstall a software, you can use the same configuration window. By selecting remove, you will be able to remove that specific application as well. And you also have a small option called an advertise. This is a Windows option for MSI. In case if you choose to advertise, this will be advertised on the control panel, where the user will be able to run the configuration wizard and install it by themselves. That's just for the MSI, and it's handled by Microsoft. Once I choose the operation type that I want to do, then here by default, it uses the system account to install the software. In case if you want to specifically give a administrator credentials, you can use this option to provide one. You can select it from the credentials that you already have, or you can go to manage credentials and add a new credential and select it from the list. So by default, it chooses a system account. And if you want the user to interact with the installation, meaning when the installation runs, if you want the user to see the interface, click on next or run, you can go ahead and check this option. Otherwise, you can leave it unchecked. I can add more packages as well. In case if I want to add multiple packages for the installation, I can click on add more packages and I select it. It will be installed in the order that I select. Now there is a scheduler settings here. I can specify a start time and an expiry date for this configuration. The importance of this is, consider you have a group of computer where you are deploying the software. And probably to that group, a specific machine did not report until a specific date. So once you schedule this configuration, this will be valid only until the expiry date that's specified here. After the specific date, if the agent contacts the server, this configuration will not be applied for that machine, even though the configuration is for that specific group of users. So that's the significance of having a scheduler setting here. And this is optional. In case if you don't want to use the settings, you can leave it unchecked. And the important part here will be the deployment policy. What is a deployment policy? Deployment policy defines how and when you want to deploy this configuration. For example, let me create a deployment policy for you and show you the options. The deployment policy determines whether I'm going to deploy this at the system startup or during the refresh cycle. Remember the refresh cycle that I spoke about, the 90-minute cycle. So if you want the configuration to be deployed only during the 90-minute cycle, you can go ahead and give the refresh cycle, and which day of the week, which week of the month that you want to deploy this, and also the deployment window. If you want to do it during the production hours or during off production hours, what is the time window that you would like to give? You can specify it here. We have option here to turn on machines. This is for Windows only. We use a concept called magic packet at the agent level. If you have wake on LAN configured on your network, or I should say enabled on the BIOS level of the machines, then you can use this turn on feature. If you select this option before the deployment, the machine will turn on from the sleep mode and it will proceed with the deployment. And you have an interesting option here which says download patches or software during subsequent refresh cycle. For instance, my deployment window I specify here as between 5 p.m. and midnight. Now here, if I don't select this option, the patches or the application binaries will be downloaded after 5 p.m., meaning it will be downloaded to the agent within the deployment window and it will proceed installation. If I check this option, the application will be ready at the agent just before the 5 p.m. So at 5 p.m., only the deployment takes place. The agent will already have the binaries ready for deployment. So that's the significance. In fact, certain environment may have a stringent target between which they want to install, or they have a specific target that they cannot download without a specific time frame. So in that case, they can choose this option. Now, by default, all software installation or patch installation are silent. If in case you want to notify the user about the deployment, you can select this option. You can have the user to interact with the deployment process and even allow the user to skip the deployment, and you can post a message as well. And then the reboot policy. If you want, it decides on how you want to reboot it, whether you want to force reboot the machine after the deployment, or if you want to give that option to the end user so that he can decide on when he wants to reboot it, or if you want to force reboot if the user is postponing the reboot for a specific number of days, you can force reboot it as well. And in fact, if you want to reboot it later on, or if you want to schedule a reboot later, you can choose no reboot option. So I can create different deployment policies for my different deployments and configurations. One, I can create it for as a no reboot. One, I can create for reboot all machines. One for my weekend deployment. One for my weekdays deployment. So once I select it, I will be able to choose it from the list that I have over here. Whichever policy that I've created will be available on the list. So I can select the appropriate policy and then proceed to target selection. Now, while I select the target, I can select a specific remote office, or I can specifically select a domain, or I can select all the domains and the work groups, and then filter it based on a specific remote office, or I can deploy it to a specific computer. Here, I will be able to use the group that are already there on my Active Directory. I can use the same groups, or I can create custom groups on the Desktop Central server as well. I will show you the custom groups in a while. You can group the machines together and select that group. You can group the users together and select that group. You have a wide range of options there. And then you can also create dynamic custom groups as well, meaning if in case you want to group the computers based on the operating system, I can do that as well. For example, if you want to group server operating systems together, you can create a dynamic custom groups as well. So in John's case, he wants to deploy it completely to all the machines. So here, we are going to select the target as all domain, and we are not going to use a filter since it's all machine. Here you have an option to retry in case the configuration fails. How do you want to retry it? Whether you want to try at the system startup, meaning whenever the system restarts again, you select the option, or whenever the system contacts next time within this 90 minutes, whether you want to try that again. How many number of times do you want to try the retry? You can select this option. Now, this is given to increase the probability of getting the application installed or even for a patch deployment. Now, in case if you want to be notified of the deployment, you can enable the notification here. You can give your email address here so that the status of the deployment, whether it is a success or if it's a failure, will be emailed to you. Now you have two interesting options here, deploy and deploy immediately. Now when I click on deploy, what happens is the configuration will be deployed. However, the server will not tell the agent to come pick the task and deploy the task immediately. Rather, the server will wait for the 90-minute cycle. Whenever the agent contacts the server, it will now give that configuration to the agent and proceed for deployment. When I go for deploy immediately option, this is where the notification server comes into picture. Now remember we spoke about the notification server which uses 8027 port. It's a TCP line which has a live connectivity with the agent. Now the server will now intimate the agent to come and pick the task immediately to process it. This is the use of notification server. We call it as on-demand operations. For all on-demand operations, or if you want to go for immediate deployments, you will need the notification server running. So when I click on deploy immediately, the agent will contact the server immediately and have the configuration deployed. Once I click on deploy, the configuration will go to the agent. Now that's how easy when you are using a template from the server. If you're going to use the predefined templates, you can simply create the configuration and select the package and deploy them. Let's look at how we did the deployment here. Downloading the binaries from vendor website, identifying the silent switches, and creating a package. All these three are taken care by the template itself. So we have to simply deploy to the target computers by selecting the package that we already have. So we downloaded the binaries, applied the switches, created the package, and deployed it. And that's how John completed the first task successfully of deploying a Chrome to all the network computers. The second task given to John is to deploy Office 2016 to the finance department computers alone. Let's see how John deploys this. Now, as we know, we do have templates for most of the applications. Now, again, I'm going to search for the template to see if there are any template for Office 2016. So I go to the templates and I search for Office 2016. I see a template here. However, it does not have a create package option. Rather, when I click on the template, it gives me a link to how to dock. When I click on this how to dock, it opens up a page, KB page, where it gives me the details of how I can install the Office 2016 or Office 365 on the end users. Now, the template does have a download and a create option. The document tells you about how you can download a custom tool from Microsoft site and how you can use it on the package creation, and then how you can use the package to deploy it using Desktop Central. Let's look at that in detail. What is this custom tool? This tool is an exe, and when you download it from the Microsoft site, you can see that it has two files, which is a setup.exe and a configuration.xml. And when you deploy this custom tool to the agent, the configuration downloads the application at the end user side and then installs the application. This is a custom tool. In case if you have an entire package downloaded from the Microsoft, you can use that same as well. You don't have to use the tool. You can use it from the CD, like the one that you see on the screen. You can use the same package to create the package on the Desktop Central. Now I can download that tool or my entire package and put it on my repository. Now, where is my repository and how can I configure it? Let's go to the product. On the software deployment, on the left-hand side, I go to an option called software repository. Here, this is my default location where my network share as well as HTTP type of repository is there. I have both the type of repositories specified here. This is a default location. In case if you want to change the repository to a different share, you can do that as well. You have to make sure the agent has appropriate access to the share. And in case the share requires any access or credentials, you can choose this option here, access the share using the credential, and you can specify the username and password here. Once you save the settings, and then once you place your application on the repository, you can create a package. Now, when you are using a template, by default, it goes for HTTP type of download, meaning all the templates that you download, be it a Chrome or any other application, it will be available on a HTTP type of a repository. Now, once I keep the application on the repository, I now go to packages to create a package. Software deployment, packages. Now here, I'm going to create a manual package. Previously, we downloaded from the template. Now we're going to create a manual package. Now here, I can specify a name for my package. In our case, it's Office 2016. I specify the name of my package, and I select the type of executable it is. If it's an exe, I select an exe. In our case, since this is an exe, I select the second option, and I can choose the license type, if it's a commercial application or a non-commercial application. In our case, it's commercial application. Now you have two options here. One is a share folder. The other one is this computer. This is where you select if you are going to use a network share or a HTTP type of repository. Now you can use both the methods for the deployment. In case if you are using a share folder, now since I have posted or pasted the application binaries on my entire path with the application executable on this installation command. Now, just by executing the setup.exe, you will not have a proper install. You need to configure it. Every application has its own method of configuring, meaning that's why silent switch comes into place. Each application will have their own silent switches, their own configuration methods. So in this Office, it uses configure, and I give the file that it's used to configure the installation. Now, where can I get this command? For the Office 2016 deployment, we have step-by-step put the instruction of what we are discussing now here. So how you have to put the switches and other details will be discussed in detail in this KB page. So even for the configuration.xml, I will be providing the share path. So once I provide the share path and give the correct configuration switches, I can now go ahead proceed with the package creation. Now this is for the network share. In case if I'm going to use a HTTP type of repository. Now I can add the executable and the configuration file over here, or I can even zip the entire content. Now you will have to be careful here. You can select the entire content and you can add it to a zip folder. You should not be zipping the entire folder. You should be selecting the content and add it to zip. Once you do it, you can add the zip file in this computer option. Now the agent has the ability to unzip this file and then proceed with the software installation. So even if you have, like I mentioned, have the entire CD or an entire application downloaded from the internet, you can zip the entire content. Please be sure, when you zip the content, you should be selecting all the contents here and zip it. You should not be zipping the folder here. So once I upload this file, now the system will know which path it should look for. So I simply say execute the setup.exe on that specific folder and use configure to configure the configuration.xml. Now please note that in our case, I have put the configuration.xml along with the setup.exe. When you're using a package from a CD, you might have the configuration.xml inside a specific folder. In 2016, you will have the configuration.xml inside the Pro Plus folder. So when you're going to specify that, you will have to specify the switches correctly. The location should be correct for proper deployment. Now, once I choose my arguments and the package, I have pre-deployment and the post-deployment options. When I say pre-deployment, now I can check for a specific software. If you want to check for a specific version of the Office and then proceed with installation, you can do that. Or if you want to specifically search for any application or a version, I can search for the application with the version, and then I can decide whether I want to proceed with installation or skip the installation. Not just the software, you can check for a free disk space. You can check if a specific process is running. If you want to kill the process and then proceed with installation, you can do that as well. That's a pre-deployment. And we also have post-deployment activity. We have custom script that you can choose from. In case if you want to run a script or use the configuration that you already have, and if you wanted to run it as a script, you can choose custom script option to run post-deployment. If you have any dependency file for the script, you can add it along with the package. Now we do have advanced options here. Now you have these advanced options only for specific scenarios. You have an exit code 0. By default, all the applications returns 0 as an exit code for successful installation. But if in case you have an application, or if it was instructed by the vendor specifically, the exit code is not 0, then you can change this. Reason being, we have seen in some of the Adobe applications where if the application did not install with the complete removal, or if it did not do a cleanup after the installation, even though the application was installed successfully, it returns a different code. So if you have not given a correct exit code here, even though the application is installed, you might see here as a failure. Now, like I mentioned, this is on a very rare scenario. In case if you're instructed by your vendor, please go ahead and change it. You can check the architecture, whether it's a 32-bit or 64-bit, and then the maximum time limit for installation. Now, by default, we have given 2 hours for installation. We have not seen it exceed 2 hours. However, if you have specific applications, for example, if you are installing an antivirus or any specific application which runs a live update, or if it's going to take more than 2 hours, specifically you can put that option here saying wait for 3 hours or 4 hours before deciding on whether the application install is success or not. So I can choose that option here. And for the package properties, if in case you have any specifics that you want to add it to the package, you can use this option and add this package. Once I create my package, it will be available on the package list here. Just like Chrome, I can also search it from the package list that I have created. In our case, it's Office 2016. I can select the package and go for installation. Now, in John's case, he has to deploy it to a specific group of computers. So I'm going to use the computer configuration again. Since this is an EXE, I select the EXE option, choose the Office 2016. We are going to install it completely. By default, it's going to install on the system user. I'm not going to use the scheduler settings because I want to use the default one. I'm choosing the deployment policy here. And then while coming to the target here, right, since I want to specifically deploy to a group or a custom group, I will have to create a custom group. Now, where can I create the custom group? You can go to admin. Under the admin, you can click on custom groups on my left-hand side. Click on custom groups. Here, I will be able to create a new group. Now, I can create a static group or a static unique or a dynamic group, meaning a static group, when a machine is a part of a static group, it can be part of any other static group as well. If it's a static unique, it cannot be a part of any other static unique group. That's a unique group. And then if it's a dynamic, like I mentioned, if you want to group them based on an operating system, for example, if you want to specifically group them based on a server operating system, you can use this dynamic group to group them. You can add n number of server operating systems that you want to use. So in John's case, he's going to create a finance department here. And then he's going to add the specific computers that he wants to the list and creates a group. Once John creates the group, now this will be available on the custom group when I select here. You can see the finance team that I have created already is available for me to use. So once I select this group, the specific machines that are added to this custom group will be deployed with the software. And in case if you want to exclude any target or a specific machine when you are deploying it to a domain, you can exclude the targets as well. Again, deploy and deploy immediately option. So when you choose, it is always recommended to go for deploy when it's a good number of machines or a big package, meaning your network bandwidth will not be get utilized, or you will not have network congestion issues. So it's always good to go for a deploy option for a bigger environment. In case if you are going for a smaller deployment, or when I say small deployment, few machines or a small package, you can always go for deploy immediately option. So once John clicks on deploy, the software will be deployed on the target computers. And that's how John completes the software installation for Office 2016. Let's quickly review what we did here. We downloaded the customized Office 2016 tool, and you can use the tool or use your own package. I have added the package to the software repository, and then once I added, I created a package. Once I created a package, I created a configuration to deploy it to the required computers. Now, Office 2016 here will be an example of how we deploy an EXE. In case if you have a custom package that you have or a client software, you can follow the same method of downloading it or keeping it on your repository or creating a package and then adding the install arguments and then deploy. It's pretty much the same workflow that we have to deploy the software. Let's look at the next task given to the John. John is receiving a lot of help desk tickets to install various business applications for different departments. How can I save time by fulfilling these requests? Now, we do have an option called self-service portal at the agent side. If you can right-click on the agent tray icon, as shown on the screenshot, you can see an option called self-service portal. And we can also have a desktop icon created for the self-service portal as well. So what is the self-service portal? Now, self-service portal is a portal where it shows the catalog of softwares for a specific user or specific machine, where the user will be able to use this portal and install the softwares by themselves. Now, I can push a specific set of packages for specific users and can have the users to install it all by themselves. Thereby, I can reduce my time or dependency for a help desk ticket for the user to install a software. Let's see how we can do that on the server side. On the Desktop Central server, I go to Software Deployment and I click on Self-Service Portal. On the self-service portal, I can publish the package based on user or based on a computer. If I want to specifically group the users together, remember I talked about the custom groups. You can always group the users together and form a group and select it from this list. So I can select the group of users. All I have to do is I have a list of packages that I have already created. I will just have to drag and drop it on the right hand side for me to publish it. And then when I click on publish, the applications that I select over here will be published to that specific group of users, and they will have it listed over here. All they have to do is just click on install. The application will get installed on their machine. Now, what if the end user does not have a privilege? Well, if you are going to put it as a computer package, it will try the installation as the system user. In case if you are putting it as a user package, first it will try as a user, and then if it fails, it will give an attempt to give it as a computer system user. Now, you should be sure of which is a computer package and which is based on the user, so that you can determine, for example, if you use a Skype or other user-based application, make sure to publish it as user-based catalogs. We do have option for the user to send a request for a specific software in case of a commercial application. For example, if it's an Office 2016, if they want to install, or any other enterprise application which would require permissions, then we can use this option. This option will be available if you had a help desk ticketing tool integrated with the Desktop Central. In our case, we have integrated Service Desk Plus with Desktop Central. So if I had integrated with the Service Desk Plus, once I publish the software, on the end user side, they will have the option to click on request rather than install. Now, when they click on request, they will have a pop-up window. They can send the business reasons for which they require this specific software. And once they send the request, on the Service Desk Plus side, when you log into the Service Desk Plus as a technician, you can see that there will be an option to take action and approve that specific application. Now, the technician can approve it from here. You can choose to approve or reject this specific request. Once they approve it on the Service Desk Plus side, the end user will have the appropriate status here. If it was rejected by the technician, the end user will see rejected option, or if it was successful, then it will be said the software is installed already. And on this, for the self-service portal, we can also define how you want the specific flow of requests to happen. For example, if you want to determine if this specific user gives a request, which technician should it go? I can configure that on my Service Desk Plus. I can go to Admin and click on Service Catalog. On that, I can select Software and I can create a different service. So based on which catalog that I select over here, I can choose the same catalog on my Desktop Central as well. I can go to Software Deployment, Self-Service Portal Settings, and I can put the same catalog name here. So once I define the catalog, when the user sends a request, it will follow that specific catalog and goes for approval. If you want to put it as a desktop shortcut and not as a tray icon, you can use this option to customize that. And if you want to change the icon of the desktop self-service portal, you can change it from the default as well. You have other options of customization as well. You can use it for the self-service portal. Now let's quickly look at how the self-service approval flow look like. So from the client machine, once I publish the software for the request method, it now goes to the Desktop Central, and now from the Desktop Central, it goes to the Service Desk Plus for approval. Once the technician approves that, it comes back to the Desktop Central, and the server now issues the command to get it installed on the client computer. Now the application will be downloaded only during the installation or whenever it's approved, not before that. So we create a package. From the package list, we associate it with the department. We create the departments on the custom group, and once we publish it, we have the user to install the software. I would like to just give you a brief idea of what are the common error messages that we may find when we are deploying a software. I've just pasted 2 of those common messages that you might see on your deployment. One which says system cannot find the path specified, or you might get access denied on your remarks. On the application, when you go to view configuration on the software deployment, you will be able to see the configurations that you have deployed and the status as well. If you go inside a specific configuration, and you can see on the execution status, if there are any failures, you will have the remarks over here. So once you see such message like system cannot find the path specified, or if it shows you access denied, which means the agent machine or the client machine is not able to access the share, or it does not have the appropriate permission to access the share, or it's not able to resolve the DNS, the repository that you have given there, the host name or the IP address, it's not able to resolve or reach that specific share. Even if you have given the name of the software on the arguments incorrectly, it will still show you as path not found, because the specified name of the application is not there on that specific share. Then you might get messages related to no switch or invalid silent switches. Now, like I mentioned, it is very crucial to use appropriate silent switches for EXEs. In case if you're not going to use a silent switch, then your software will not get installed in case of an EXE. /s is not a default for all the applications. We have just given it as an example over here. For specific application, you will have to get it from the vendor, or you can search it online to get the appropriate switches, because different vendor has different silent switches. Once you use the correct silent switches, you will have the software to be installed. Let's quickly look at some scenarios and solutions. Scenario 1. I want to install an Autodesk design software on few computers, and it requires a .NET framework. How can I achieve this? Now remember, we spoke about adding multiple packages. Going back to the configuration, I can go to package, select a specific package, and go for configuration. Here I will be able to select multiple packages. In our case, I want to install a .NET first and then proceed with some other application. I add the other package as well. Now note, I have added 2 packages here. The softwares will be installed in the order that I add over here. So .NET will be installed first, and then it will proceed with installation of Adobe. Scenario 2, can I install a software at user level such as a Dropbox or a Skype? Yes, like I mentioned on the installation, you can create packages and push them based on user or for computer configuration as well. You can create user configuration if the software is user specific. You can use the user configuration and push it to the specified group of users. Scenario 3, I have a third-party application that does not support silent switch. How can I install it? Well, in this case, our suggestion for you is to use, when you're creating a package, you can allow the user to interact with the software deployment. When I'm going to the package, you can see the option here to allow user to interact with the installation. So once you check this option, if the application does not have a silent switch, or if it does not, you will not be able to provide a silent switch, you can have the end user to interact with the application. They can click on next, and proceed with the installation of the product. So in this way, you can install a software that does not support silent installation, or you can use a script that you can create in order to achieve the same and add it along with the package. I have a set of applications including Microsoft Office and CRM deployed for my sales team. I want all new salespeople to have these applications installed on their computer automatically. How can I do it? Well, we do have an option for that. When you deploy the configuration specifically for a domain or specifically for a group, if I have selected the option here, configuration, and click on configuration settings, if I have selected this option, now whenever a new computer is added to the OU or the group that I have deployed already, the system will have this configuration applied. Now I can determine the time. Every 6 hours it will check for new machines on your AD, and it will go for configuration application. I tried to deploy a business application to a computer, but it failed. Is there a way to troubleshoot it myself? Yes, you can view the status of the deployment as I showed you before on the software deployment. You can go to view configuration, and you can see the status of each configuration that you are deployed. In case if you are creating an MSI package, you have a specific option to create a log on the advanced option. If you check this option of enable logging for troubleshooting, now if there is a failure on the application, it will create a log on the agent install folder. Under logs folder, you will have the application name and a log created for that. In case it fails, you can view this log to see why it fails, and you can troubleshoot accordingly. Let's look at some frequently asked questions. How can I install an application for Mac which are not listed on the templates? On the server, when you are creating a package, we have also created a option to create package for Mac. You can use the Mac option to create a package of your own. In case if you want to add additional options of installation command, you can do that. And even uninstallation is also possible. You can specify the path from where you want to remove the application, and you can use this package to install or uninstall from a Mac client. Self-service portal is not enabled. Do I need an enterprise edition to use self-service portal? How do I know which edition do I use? Well, self-service portal is available with Enterprise Edition as of now. In case if you want to know which edition you use, you can click on the license on the top, and it will show you the details of whether you are an Enterprise Edition or not. To add on, we have introduced self-service portal for Mac as well. In case if you would like to use, you can use them. Where can I view the software deployment task? We can view it on the view configuration here. And here we have an additional option. In case I have deployed a specific software and I want to reuse the same configuration for future deployments as well. If I want to do that, I can go to Action here and click on Save as Template. Once you click on Save as Template, you can go to Configuration and then click on Templates. And on the user-defined templates, that specific configuration will be saved as template. So anytime if you want to reuse the same configuration, you can use this template and deploy it to your requirement. Where on the user PC does it copy the software installable? Does it erase afterwards? Well, this executable will be copied to the agent install folder. On successful installation, the executable will be deleted. In case if there is a failure, it will keep it for the retry options. If I want my software package to be replicated to the remote office, what is my best way? Well, if you want the packages to be replicated to the distribution server or to the remote office, you can use the HTTP type of repository while you're creating the package, and that will be the best solution when you're managing multiple remote offices over the internet. When multiple softwares are deployed in a sequence, if the first package fails, does it attempt to continue? How's the notification sent back? Well, when you are deploying multiple packages in a configuration, if the first one fails, the configuration will be failed. You will have the detail as failed. And if in case if you want to be notified, like I mentioned, while we create the configuration, you can choose enable notification and give your email address over here. In case the configuration fails, you will be notified through email. With that, we have come to the end of the session, and thank you very much for patiently waiting and going through the training program. Please do rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. This will help us for our future trainings. And please do spread the word about the free training that we have. You can spread it through the Twitter, Facebook, or other social media so that more people will join the training and they will be benefited. The next training is on asset management. You can join for the session. You will have a lot of features to discuss about. You'll be interested to know what we have on the asset management. Thank you very much, and you all have a wonderful week ahead. Bye-bye.